who's 11, and spicy, and who's 9, and more of a chai. I love that. Because chai is spice. Chai is spice. And it's not for everyone, but it is not as spicy as a jalapeno. I love it. Okay. Hard to know where to start. I think we are at about week 6 of TPT since discovering the spicy masterclass and then jumping into TPT. In that time, we have gone from walking on eggshells to feeling more like we were walking on unexploded ordnance. Anyway, has moved from being controlling and demanding with weekly trips to the spice market to spending entire days there with the majority of explosiveness directed at and dad. She's now become really physical. Now that I just want to flag, if you're able to write in the chat pad, I just want to flag, why is it at dad? And meaning, like, I know her brother, we've spoken about this before, her brother, pushes her buttons, but what is it about dad? Like, dad is more strict, or dad yells, or dad shames, or what is it why do you think the dad cops the explosiveness compared to you? She's now become really physical, kicks, punches, throws, and everything is just way more heightened. Where we used to get grumbling and resistance, but getting out of bed and out the door. Now we have flat out refusal to get out of bed. We used to have long bedtime negotiations. Now she just tells us no and stays up until after midnight. Oh my Lord. We used to be able to chat with her about her emotions and or actions. Now she just screams at us or walks away or starts getting violent or simply just shuts down. We're starting to feel like giving her choice and holding back our reactions and trying to connect and empathize with her is driving her further into this shutdown state. We have noticed that every transition, no matter how small, sends her into a state of fight flight, and we feel like we don't ever get a chance to make a connection because her moments of calm are so fleeting. But connection is what she so desperately needs right now. We feel like we've reached a point of major burnout, not just with the whole family, and every single moment is such a battle. We try so hard to be creative and playful and calm in our approach, but it is so hard to constantly find the energy. And what did you say? She seems to blame dad for a lot of her lack of choice, I think. Holds him responsible for a lot of the trauma she's had to get through. Okay, that's piqued my interest. If you feel comfortable to type, and I don't have to read it out loud, or I can read it, it's up to you if you want me to share it or not. What is she speaking about? The trauma she said to get, like, he was angry or scary or something in the past, and that's what she's referring to? Or like having to move and it was his fault because of a job or something? I know. If you don't want to say, that's fine too. What have you tried? Since Spicy and Tea, we've worked really hard on finding our own calm, responding with all the scripts. Prior to that, we definitely fell into negative reactions. I was a big yeller. I'd get overwhelmed really easily, but shame was probably the thing we did the most, plus letting or telling her to be alone with it. We reflected on how much we did wrong and have had many moments of beating ourselves up over our past methods. Now I try to meet her where she's at, asking her what we can try instead of lashing out. Music and dance parties is one thing she responds to sometimes, but we also use pushing and pulling to try to move her out of the violent behaviors. That's worked once or twice. We live on a farm, and another thing she's taken to doing is running off into the paddocks at night, which is super scary. I think although we try really hard to meet her with calm and attempts at connection, she senses our desperation, so it kind of feels inauthentic to her. Yes, I think you are onto something. I feel like a lot of the time we are just placating her, and she knows that. And so she keeps pushing, trying to figure out at what point we'll break. Yep. We've done really well, I think, at moving ourselves into a better place of being able to stay calmer than we ever used to. But there have been moments of yelling and snapping, and even a couple of times our own physical responses have been rougher than they should be. Mostly this happens when she's trying to get at her brother, so it becomes us holding her and grabbing her so that she can't hurt. Is there anything else happening? The last 12 months have been really full on, and I know that's why we are seeing so much spice. She moved schools at the beginning of last year. She was accepted into a selective class for years 5 and 6. I was hesitant because I knew what a challenge it would be for her, but she was adamant to do it. So we gave her the autonomy over that choice and have supported her best we could. It's been a huge struggle for her, particularly socially. She feels like she has no friends and keeps telling us everyone there hates her and she's a weirdo and a loser. Oh. Then at her parent-teacher interview, midway through last year, the teachers identified her as potentially neurotypical, and so she has been really confronted by that. Did you mean neurodivergent? That she was confronted by being called neurodivergent and not neurotypical? We're seeing a psychologist for a few months, but didn't like her, so refused to go back. We had a gorgeous puppy that got hit by a car. This is maybe the trauma you talk about. Okay. We had a gorgeous puppy that got hit by a car. Dad was driving and was with him, and we had to put her down. That was absolutely devastating, and she blames dad and herself. She got her first period around her 10th birthday. So that's been huge for her. Oh, girl, she's got a lot going on. And she was always really excited about getting her period, but the reality is definitely not lived up to her expectations, right? Yeah. Now she's looking at high school next year. Info nights have started, and she's considering whether she applies for selective programs again and feels completely overwhelmed. She tells me in the rare moments of connection that she feels trapped and hates everyone telling her how to live her life, and she just wants to escape from us all. So in summary, I think we've narrowed it down to how do we connect with our spicy girl when she is in an almost constant state of shutdown? How do we encourage her to make any kind of good choice for herself when everything is met with a brick wall? I feel like we are losing her. Oh, bud. Assessment. No assessment. We've been to 2 psychologists in our lifetime. The first thought autism initially and then changed to ADHD, but didn't suggest an assessment. The second, late last year, thought autism, but was hesitant to give advice of what we do and has refused to go back to her. We are seeing a counselor. She does outdoor sessions, and I think finds that way less confronting than sitting in an office. I want to get her assessed, but really needed to come to that on her own terms. School is pushing for the assessment too. Is that okay if I read the farm thing about the trauma that she experiences? Is that okay if I say that out loud or not? Yeah? Okay. And so mom said the trauma that she refers to is living on a farm and we slaughter the cattle. And so dad is the one who runs that side of things, and she loves our animals. Oh, sweetheart. Gosh, I would not have survived if I'd lived on a farm. Oh my gosh, that just as an animal lover. Yeah. And I was vegan for a long time. I'm a vegetarian actually, and vegan for a little bit. But yeah, it's such a contradiction, isn't it? Of loving animals and then eating them. And it's so hard. Yeah. And do you know what I think is interesting about the last question I was just answering about the perceived helplessness, right? And that makes sense. How for her, that's how it lands and that's how it sits is, you know, I would imagine that maybe even the way that she perceives it is like, he's killing our pets, you know, where if you look at it that way, it's like, oh, that's horrifying. You know, I can see why it feels that way to her, why she feels like traumatized by it, because yeah, when you say it that way, it's like, oh, mom says I'm vegetarian, but loves meat so much. And that may be a real contradiction for her. Yeah, it is very confronting. Yeah. Okay. So let me just go back up to the top. So I think you got to ask yourself, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want a kid who is obedient and compliant and shoves all of their feelings down? Or do you want a kid who is authentically themselves, expresses themselves, and is vocal, open, and honest about how they're feeling, what they need, etc.? And this is the tricky part of this whole gig and this whole game of parenting is we say, I want to raise a girl to be strong and independent and not take shit from people and to hold her ground and to be fierce and advocate for herself and not be a doormat and stand up for herself. I just don't want to parent that. I would like that to be the outcome, but I don't really want to be along for the ride where we create someone like that. I think that all the time with my girls, that I would love to pick them up on the other side, but parenting to create a future woman like that means having discussions, having conversations, not being controlling, encouraging them to advocate for themselves, encouraging for them to articulate and communicate what they need and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times I will look at my husband with, you know, that emoji with the swirly eyes, like just, I look at him just like, why did I think this was a good idea to teach my kids to like advocate for themselves? Because it's annoying and it's harder. And especially for those of us that were raised in controlling, punitive, strict, don't you talk back, shut your mouth homes. This is wildly confronting and wildly scandalous that we would have a child behave this way, because in my house, if you had ever acted like that, you know, grandma and papa would have, you know, beat me and tied me to the, it's just very hard to reconcile, I think, within ourselves when our kids act like that, if we were raised that way, because it just is so foreign. But I think, you know, we were talking about the boardroom members. I think my experience of being parented, so like little Heidi, little me at my boardroom table, I have to take her into account sometimes that she's the one that gets triggered by my kids' behavior. she's the one who thinks, you can't speak to me like that, because she heard that in her childhood times, right? There's these parts of us that our kids trigger. But if I think about my compassionate self, my most loving parent self, when I think about those parts of me, they just feel so much love towards her and want to help her and don't want to see her suffer, right? And so just you having the awareness of what was your experience and what's your partner's experience of being parented. Were you guys hit? Were you spanked? Were you punished, timeouts, whatever? That's so relevant here in this conversation, because likely being a child of the 80s and 90s, you probably were parented in the traditional way that 80s and 90s kids were parented. And so this stuff is just crazy and like just wildly unacceptable. That's what our parents would have said. But I guess what I feel like, because she's 11, is I'm like, well, is this what was there all along? These big feelings and like, no, I'm not going to bed. And that's been there all along. And the reason why she was compliant up until now, or was a bit more obedient, is because she was afraid. Because she was afraid of punishment. She was afraid of getting time out, grounded, losing privileges. Like, so it was fear that was motivating her to kind of squash how she felt. That kind of sits with me. I don't love that. Because you know how, like, on the outside, it looks like she's getting worse, quote unquote, right? But then I go, well, what's our definition of worse? And I go back to the first question I said, what do we want, right? And I think what you would say is, yeah, I want a kid that grows up to advocate for themselves and not be a doormat, whatever. But I don't want someone who's violent. I don't want someone who's, hitting me and hitting her brother and stuff like that. I would imagine that that's what you'd say. And agreed. I'm not saying for anyone listening that like, yeah, well, just let your kid, she's finding her voice, just let her hit and scream, I hate you. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I think if you've rolled 11 years in one particular parenting style, and then now you're changing, you're literally flipping the script, dude, that's going to take a while for her to get her head around it. But I would have conversations, like I said, with our last question. I would definitely sit her down and have a like line in the sand moment where we go, hey, you are not wrong. You are noticing change in different parenting styles because we've realized this wasn't right and that wasn't right, and the shaming and the punishments and the it doesn't work and I'm sorry and wow, have we got stuff wrong. And every spicy kid, I mean, every kid loves it, but every spicy kid loves it when we say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I'm working on it, whatever. But I also think like a thing that feels very strong in this one, and then some of your other questions is, I feel like you're trying too hard. I feel like you're trying to be such a good student that you're like, hey, I hear you. You are a good kid having a hard time. Oh, that must be hard. I'm so sorry that you are sad about this. That's just my vibe that I've got from some of your questions, that you're like, I see you with like you have like your glasses and like your little clipboard, and you're like, okay, so you are such a good kid, like you're trying so hard to be this like perfect T student. Maybe that's a question. In your academic life, have you been perfect or perfectionist, or do you tend to succeed at stuff that you do, or you are a high achiever? Are you like, yeah, because yeah, okay, totally. There you go. Yeah. So dude, this feels really uncomfortable for you because you're like, I'm doing all the things and I'm saying it how Heidi says to do it. But it's like, dude, you're not being authentic. You're not being yourself. And she knows it. Authenticity is oxygen to spices. If you are inauthentic, it's like you're blowing the whole thing up before you even start. Because it's like this. I want you to think about this with glasses. I don't know if you have glasses, and I like the emoji of the dude with the glasses. It's almost like when you are about to go into a parenting moment with her, you do this. You're like talking to her and she's pissed off and whatever, and you're being like normal, you're being you. And then you go, oh, you are a good kid having a hard time. I love you. I'm sorry you are having big feelings. So what I want you to think about is, don't put on the glasses. Stop. Don't put on the glasses. Like, you have all of this information, and then you can notice your board member, perfectionist me, the one who sits over there that has the glasses on, who was the valedictorian in high school and got perfect A's and blah, blah, blah. The good student, you just notice her there and you go, I see you. I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me put the glasses on and become perfect student. Mom, it's not going to work with it. She sees right through it. She knows it's an act. I appreciate you. But why don't you just take the knowledge and the content that you've learned, shove it in my brain. I will just hold that in the back of my head, but I'm going to still talk to her like I've always talked to her, like I'm her mom and this is my kid. Okay. Okay. And then you approach it, you take your glasses off, and I would even call it, and I would say it. I would say it out loud and go, okay, like if you can do this in the heat of the moment, go, okay, I'm just going to think out loud. All right. So I'm thinking how I used to, like how I would have responded previously is like yelling and like saying, you got to go to your room or you can't have the iPad later. But I'm trying to do like the Heidi stuff, that we're learning in the parent school. And like the parent school thing would be to go, I know you're a good kid and you're having a hard time, but I know that sounds like really fake and scripted. And you're probably like, that doesn't sound like you, Mom. Like when are you going to yell and shame at me? But I'm like, I'm really trying to do different. Okay. I'm really trying, but I'm like stuck between these two worlds of like learning this new way of speaking to you. But then there's this like old part of me that's just wanting to do what I've always done, which is yell at you and shame you and punish you. But I know that doesn't work because I know you are a good kid. And the only reason you're acting this way is because you're pissed off and you're mad about something. And that makes total sense. That makes total sense to me that you're mad about this. I'm just trying to like answer you like me, and not be the like script version that I'm supposed to be. And so I don't really know what I'm supposed to say right now, but I need you to know, I guess, that I love you. And I know that you are not being mad right now because you're a bad person. I know that you are being mad right now because you feel like I'm not getting it. And that's not on you. That's on me. I need to work on communicating in a way that makes you see that I do get it and that I'm trying. There's something I'm missing it. And I just want you to know I'm trying to figure that out. Maybe we should just take like a 5-minute break so I can think and just try to be more me, And I think if you went that route, oh my gosh, I think she would be like, finally, thank you. You are being you, not this weird glasses lady that's not like my mom. Some of my most favorite parenting moments have been when I've said to my spicy, when she's full blown spice market, saying things to her like, I don't know what to do right now. Your feelings aren't too much for me. I can handle this. I just need a second to think here and to calm down because I see you're very mad. And sometimes it's like, I don't know, that's like a pattern disruptor, something that she then appreciates that I guess I'm calling it, or I'm seeing it for what it is, which is you're a good kid having a hard time. I think a lot of parents have given me that feedback, that when they say the line of you're a good kid having a hard time, it pisses off their kid. Cara, didn't that happen? I feel like that happened in the beginning with Gideon. And he maybe even still says that, even though it's a few years in, that some kids just like, oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard when their parent says you're a good kid having a hard time. And I think that that's because they so genuinely believe I'm crap. I'm a bad kid because I get in trouble all the time. And for 5 years, 10 years, however old they are, they're just so convinced. And you sound like crazy talk by saying I'm not. What did Cara say? Yep, all of this, even the night running away. Yes, that's right. I remember when he ran across the giant overpass, the bridge overpass on the highway. Yeah, I remember that. 8-lane overpass. That's right. Oh, I forgot about that. What are your thoughts, Cara? If you have any thoughts of what you would say at this stage of being early in the TPT journey, you write that out and then I'll keep going. Because you know what, too, I just read the bit I highlighted of she says no and stays up till after midnight. Part of this also is her asserting herself as she comes into adolescence. And this is what, like, if it wasn't now, she'd be doing it at 14, 15. It's just the whole thing, I think, of we think we have a sense of control of our children, and it's cute. It's really cute. We really think we can control them. And you can to some extent when they're little because you can pick them up and you can move them. But then as they get older, I think what happens is the game is up, that we realize what's been true all along, which is you can't control them. We can, but that comes as a consequence. you can't really control them. If they're going to sneak out, they're going to sneak out. If they're going to get a TikTok, they're going to get a TikTok. If they're going to, there's just, we think we can control them. But really, all we have is connection. And if you focus on connection, then you can get through all of those choices and decisions and things because we have a connected relationship. And so that's what I would say is like all of your books and notes and everything that you learn from me and all of the modules and all the notes that you've taken, throw them over there, and your whole focus just for this next week until next week's call is connection and the relationship. That's it. That's like your only homework. All I want you to focus on is your relationship with her. So what does that look like? You being more flexible, you saying yes to things that, do I really want to die on this hill? Battles. One example I use all the time is a client who had a little boy who was adamant that he have ice cream before dinner. She's plating dinner, literally taking it out of the frying pan, plating it. And he's adamant he needs to have ice cream. And she just is like, no, that's not happening. And anyway, a 2-hour epic meltdown ensues, throwing, violent, kicking, biting, 2 hours. And she was going out to dinner that night, and she actually was shaking and left, and then spent like the whole of dinner crying because she was so upset how it went. And I said, why was that the hill to die on? And what would have happened if you had given him like a spoonful of ice cream and you compromised on a spoonful of ice cream? And she was like, I hadn't thought of that. And I said, I mean, really? Like, it's ice cream, dude. Like, it's dairy. Like, it's not the end of the world if he were to have a spoonful. I wonder why that got so like rigid in your head, And came back to her childhood, and that was just a firm rule. We don't have dessert or whatever. And I said, well, let's just play this out. If it had gone like this, Mom, I really want ice cream. I'm plating your dinner. Can you wait a few minutes? No, I'm getting it. What if we had stopped and gone, okay, you're not supposed to have ice cream before dinner, but I can get you a little. Do you want 1 spoonful or 2? And I can put it in a little dish here. Do you want 1 or 2? And my hunch is he would have said 2, but the whole choice thing. He feels like he won. He feels like he got what he wanted. And Mom then has an easy 2 hours, because I can hear those of you in the back, I can hear the critics in the back going, that's just giving in and that's not having boundaries. Okay, Janet, sure, if you want to call it that. I call it the way that spicy kids perceive a no or perceive stuff is different. They perceive it as a threat. 1, everything it feels like is perceived as a threat. But 2, they take a lot of stuff personally, like you saying no to the ice cream or no to TV, how they hear it and feel it. And I swear they would pass a lie detector test. How it feels to them is, I hate you, you unlovable, ugly, stupid idiot. I wish you weren't born. You're the worst thing in the world. I hope you die. Like, that's how they hear it when we say no or some reasonable request, or how they would perceive a demand. And then when you think about it that way, it's like, gosh, that's how you take it when I say no to ice cream before dinner? Jeez, I don't want that. But also, I can't change your perception because I'm not, that magical. So shit, all I have to do is just give you a spoonful of ice cream, and then you think you're amazing and that we are amazing and you love me more than okay, it's a spoonful of ice cream. It's like they're just different, the way that they perceive stuff. And so that's why we do things like iPads in bed right before bed and ice cream before dinner. And we do this sort of unconventional stuff that most other people would look at and go, that's bad parenting. But it's like, yeah, but I have a different kid than you do, Janet. I have a totally different situation. And the way that this kid perceives no, screens, blah, 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 whatever it is wounding, hurtful, and as a threat. And this is also where I encourage people to definitely look into pathological demand avoidance, especially because you said there's a few people who went autism, maybe autistic, because we've had a few people flag that. In my mind, I'm like, yep, that sounds spot on. The hard part with autism, especially with girls, is it's often very hard to diagnose and hard to find all of the criteria to meet a diagnosis. And this is why I love Marissa. And Marissa is a colleague of mine who specializes actually in girls. And I would just have a Zoom consult with her to just say, here's my kid, blah, 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 blah. This is what happens, just you and her, not what are your thoughts? And these are what the other clinicians said. What are your thoughts? And she'll be terrific at going, okay, well, this is why this sounds like autism. That sounds like ADHD, or that doesn't sound like anything. She can help you kind of clarify and make sense of things. And I would just have a chat with her about it. And maybe she'll say something too about PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance, a profile within autism. So yeah, and maybe that's something to research in general, is more about PDA, because I would not be surprised if like this has always been there. This is how she's always been feeling inside. She's just not expressed it because she knew she was going to get in trouble and stuff. And so that's why you're kind of seeing this different version of her. Yeah. Then another thing you said with connection, I think she senses our desperation. So it kind of feels inauthentic to her. I think she keeps pushing, trying to figure out at what point we'll break. And I think that's why if you have an authentic conversation with her of like, dude, you can keep pushing and you can run into the, paddock at night and you can say, I'm not going to bed. Like, totally. It's your life, dude. I'm just trying to help your body be strong, help you not feel tired tomorrow. I'm just trying to help, but you're right. It is your life and you are allowed to have autonomy over it. I'm trying to guide you through that process. And I think too, with the, she keeps telling us everyone there hates her and that she's a weirdo and a loser. That also then makes sense to me why she gets so controlling and so bossy, boss-like at home, of wanting to say, like, this is when I go to bed and this is what I do. And she's doing all that stuff because I have no control, or feels like I have no control at school, but I have control at home. So damn it, I'm going to use it and assert myself. Then the being potentially, her teacher's saying the neurodivergent thing, and she's been really confronted by that. Yes, girl, I've had that conversation with many teenagers. And Marissa, again, great resource to guide you on how to have that conversation. And there's books that Marissa goes through. And the thing that I love about, and if you search past Q&A calls, there's several where we talk about like, how do I talk to my kid about their assessment results, or how do I explain my kid's brain to them? And the way that I always explain it to kids or adults is, we need to figure out how your brain works so that you get the best out of life in terms of how you learn and special supports. And your brain is awesome and you're capable of doing a lot of cool stuff. But if people don't understand how your brain works, the schooling system around you, it only hurts you because they're not seeing you in all of like the cool ways you are. Hallowell, author in the ADHD space, describes it, I forget his first name always, as a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes is the ADHD brain. And a lot of times when you explain that to kids, like, that's super cool that you have a Ferrari brain. That's amazing. But yeah, the bicycle brakes thing, that's a bit tricky. But cool thing is we can teach you, and we can teach your teachers how to work with a Ferrari brain that has bicycle brakes. I think that's pretty cool. But to do that, we have to talk to a clinician, or we have to do these tests or whatever. But also there's so much that you can do assessment wise without the kid. You can do lots of questionnaires about behavior. You can have lots of sessions with the clinician, and then the clinician can meet with the child maybe once. Or, if there's a child who is nonverbal, that happens, that they go to the assessment, but they don't speak. Like, what happens then? They don't get a diagnosis? Like, no. The clinician will still offer a diagnosis. You know what I mean? Like, so I hear you on why she won't go, but I think if you engage with Marissa and try to get some more understanding or awareness around how it will benefit her and how you can support her in knowing and why labels are awesome when you're at school and in the real world, that might make a huge difference. Yeah. And also when you said, she hates everyone telling her how to live her life and she just wants to escape from us all. That makes sense. That she's trying to tell everyone when I'm doing my bedtime and all of that. So I would sort of like kind of back off a bit and go, I hear you. Yep. That's the last thing I want, is you to feel like you have that at school and you have that at home. So let's work together in figuring that out. And then there's the whole hormone thing with her getting her period. Like, my Lord. Like, I feel for you guys because that just makes it so much more complicated. So to your question, how do we connect with her when she's in an almost constant state of shutdown? I think you got to figure out what sort of stuff you're prioritizing, like chores or manners or pick up your towel off the floor, or I don't know, like what's your focus right now? And then deviate from that. Because connection to me should be authentic. Like when I hang out with my friends who I feel really connected to, it's authentic. We're doing something we both love or I love, you know? So what is it that she loves? What is it? What's her world that she loves hanging out and being and studying and watching, and meet her there and join her in that. Okay, let me read. I saw the chat pad was going. So let me see. What did I miss in here? So to Kara, the reply of when he says, you know, I don't like you saying you're a good kid having a hard time. And I asked, what did you do? She said, my own burnout has had a huge impact on my spicy and it can spiral easily. So we've dropped all demands lately, which is helping. He doesn't eat with the family. He has a banana and PB sandwich at 9 p.m. instead of dinner. He eats or has breaks sitting on the back of the couch. Our little spicy boy often wants ice cream before dinner. Now we just let the ice cream run out a bit sooner. Not worth dying on that hill, but hard when there may be so many voices in our heads about rules. Yeah. And that's the thing with these kids is like the rules just make it worse, I think. I think the thing I just always go back to is they perceive it as a threat. They perceive it as an attack. They perceive it as, I hate you and I don't love you. And that's why I think a lot of times these kids say things like, I want to die. I want you to die. Or they hit themselves, or I want a different family, that kind of stuff. What it actually comes from is because I have all of these repeated experiences where when you say no, how I hear it and feel it and experience it is that you don't love me and what I want doesn't matter. And so if that's continually reinforced to me, it makes sense that the natural deduction is then I must not matter and I must not be worth living. And I wish I had a different family for people who understood me. And how we could view that is you just want to live in a family that says yes all the time. And they would be like, uh-huh. But the way that they experience it is not as you saying yes all the time. It's your yes means I love you. I see you. You make sense. I honor what you need. It's just hard but do you know what too, though, what I often find is when we do more of those yeses and we become more flexible and we become more, I'm not going to die on that hill, they actually get a lot better and they don't have to fight so much to feel heard and to navigate that threat because the threat's gone. Because I'm going, okay, you can have a spoonful. Yeah. Okay. Then says, we have kind of dropped all demands already, but I'll have a think about what else can go and probably get nerdy about it. And yes, have been looking at PDA stuff and it rings a lot of bells for us. And you know what, dude? I just always go, if something ticks boxes and rings bells, just go with it in your own brain that like, you know what? I'm just going to diagnose her myself in my head. She has PDA and then that's how I'm going to approach things. Because oftentimes I gave them my own diagnosis. So many parents say it made a huge difference. Kara says, authenticity was a big part too. I was perfect studenting too. The night running became a management issue. I'm deadlocking all the doors as soon as we saw a hint of escalation. It did lead to more physical restrictions to stop him jumping out windows, but he stayed safe inside. He also doesn't run away much anymore as it wasn't an option, so he moved on. Happy to connect with you and share some of the more practical tips on what has worked. Also, stretch your resistance band while he watches TV is making a big difference at the moment to stop him kicking, punching his sister in that setting. Also, melatonin from iHerb, so she can actually settle her brain down to sleep. Yes, I also agree. There's a post in the Facebook group. If you just search on melatonin, there's a whole thread about that because so many spices, it's such a neurodivergent thing to find it hard to shut the brain off and wind down and go to sleep. So there's a lot of kids that are neurodivergent that take melatonin to fall asleep because then it's like, how much of this is sleep deprivation? And that is contributing to a lot of the stuff, you know? All of this stuff has always been in her story. It has just been ramped up, really. Sophia says, another vote for melatonin gummies, a lifesaver for us. Ooh, that's a good one, Kara. Kara says they play the game, in the car. What if I did this? Would you still love me? So it's actually not a conversation. My kids think it's so funny to try and outdo each other. And you know where that comes from too, of why I love that is because so many years of my career have been in working in sexual abuse. And such a huge belief in that experience is shame, and that I'm bad and unlovable, or I did something to make this happen, or it's my fault. And that's usually what abusers will say, is that it's your fault, or no one will believe you, or your parents will get mad at you, or whatever. And so to combat that, if my kids, first of all, don't have a punishment model in our home, that's one. That's a huge sort of protector against people like that, abusers or whatever, kind of getting in and having the, I don't know, ability to get into my kid's head in that way, that my kid knows, well, we don't do punishment at home, so whatever, dude. Like, my mom's not going to be mad at me. And I'm not going to get punished because we have a connected relationship. But that doing that work is a huge part of where I realize the parents have to shift the dynamic of how they interact with the kid and prioritize the relationship rather all of the other things, because I want the kid to come to the parent to talk about the grooming that happens before. And I want the kid to come to the parent if something creepy happens. Like if it starts there, I want them to come to the parent so the parent can do something, right? But that's not going to happen if they don't have a connected relationship. So that's why connection is so important. And them knowing I love you no matter what. And this is also why I hate the term unacceptable, or that's unacceptable behavior, or it's just totally unacceptable for you to be like that. I hate that language, because it's like, I agree when our kids hit and stuff, that's not something we should accept. That's not cool. But I think what it feels like when we hear the word unacceptable is just massive shame. And that, I think how a lot of people translate that phrase is, I am unlovable. I am bad. I do not have worth and value. And I don't want that. So that's why when it comes to handling decisions, when our kids have like done the wrong thing or hit someone, or, you know, are just not awesome, I like to meet it with compassion. And I know you're a good kid, so for you to do that, there would have been something going on that made sense to you at the time, because I know you're smart. I know you're a good kid. So like, tell me what was going on in your mind when you hit him, or when you swore at the teacher or whatever. Because I'm sure, because I know you and I know you're a good kid. So I know that it made total sense to you in the moment. Well, I swore at the teacher, or I punched the kid because da da da. Yep. I can see how that made sense in the moment. Totally. Makes total sense. Yeah. So I'm always communicating to them, you are lovable. You make sense to me. But you know, like, you can't hit your teacher, and you know you can't swear at your teacher, because like, dude, you know what happens when that happens. So like, I don't know. What do you think? How are we going to get through this? Because the whole thing about like, they need to learn a lesson. They know, like, kids know when they're like 3 how to behave, and like do's and don'ts of like social etiquette. Like, they know. The reason why they can't is because they can't. That's not a won't listen or won't keep their hands to themselves. They can't. And when I think we say that to them and say like, I get that. And do you know what? Actually, that's a good thing to add to the speech, I think, is I know in those moments, sweetheart, when you run into the paddock or you scream, I hate you and I'm going to bed at midnight, I know that that is not coming from a place within you that is mean or bad, or you're like trying to scare us or be difficult. I know I've known you long enough to know that you have a big, beautiful heart. And when you act like that, or when you get frustrated with your brother, I know that's not you. You're doing that because there's other stuff going on that you're mad at me for, you're mad at dad for, you're mad, or you just have feelings that you like don't make sense to you and you don't know what's happening. You just feel really overwhelmed. I know you're not a bad person. And I know you hate it too, when words come out of your mouth like that, or when you hit and stuff. I know you don't like to feel that way either. And I know, and we're going to work together on this to try to figure out a way to help your brain and your body communicate and not have to feel so out of control. Because you know what I often think about with these kids is like, gosh, what would that feel like that I got so dysregulated I had to go run into the bushes in the dark behind my house? Dude, what would I have to be feeling? Like, how overwhelmed would I have to be feeling to start beating the crap out of my little brother? Dude, like, if I think about all of us now as our adult selves, we're all capable. We're all capable. Man, how dysregulated, upset, pissed off, overwhelmed, maxed would you have to get to escalate to that kind of behavior? Then that makes me go, dude, you are in a lot of pain if you escalate to that. And that must feel scary. Because I know for me, we've all had these moments where you feel, when you feel yourself kind of lose control. And like you said in the thing where we get a little bit rough, or like the yanking of the arm is get in the car, is where you can just feel that like, ew, I lost control there. Oh yeah, I have some big shamey memories of stuff like that, especially when my kids were little. Oh, yuck. And I think how gross that felt for me, and feeling that out of control and ashamed, knowing I'm not supposed to, hug my kid's arm like that and be rough with them. Or I locked her outside once. That's probably one of my shamey greatest hits. How old was she? Maybe 3? And I can't remember. It was just like one after another of things. And it was a clear glass door, but still, it's not a proud moment. But I just was so frustrated and overwhelmed. I picked her up and I put her on the patio and I shut the door and I locked it and just walked away, just like, I can't deal with you right now. That was a shamey moment. And then, of course, I went back and was like, I'm sorry, and repaired. Yeah. We all have those moments, but the key is repair, right? So anytime I blow it, which is like every day, I blow it because I yell, I rush, I care about stuff that doesn't really matter, shame, whatever it is. And my kids are old enough now to the point where they'll tell me, Mom, can you stop shaming me? It really feels like you're shaming me. Why are you shaming her like that, Mom? I repair. And I go, you're right. I'm sorry. That wasn't cool. You didn't deserve that. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. You're right. And I just repair. And I would start doing more repair with and saying, as soon as you hear it, if you can hear it in your own voice when you say stuff, try to catch yourself and go, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That was shaming. Sorry. It's just huge currency, I think, in an argument when someone takes responsibility. It just can massively de-escalate. Like Jackie was saying about when she said to her son, I'm sorry that we were, getting mad at you about punching the other kid. And then it de-escalated him. Because I think that's the thing that is often so frustrating for these kids, is just being so misunderstood. And you think I'm bad. And they're like, I'm not bad. I suck at emotional regulation and I'm dysregulated and I don't know what to do with all my big feelings. And I hate that I perceive everything as threat. Oh, I feel alone in my brain and my life. And I think when we can say that to our kids and go, I get that. And I did not get that until now. And I'm sorry. And that's not on you. That's on me. And now I know. And now I'm working on that and to do it differently. She's so smart. When we say, hey, Em, you can't hit us, she's like, well, clearly I can because I just did. And dude, I don't say you can't hit us. She knows she's not supposed to hit you. Try instead, dude, I know if you are hitting us, and remember the whole match the intensity. Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. I know for you to hit us, there's something going on because I know that ain't something we do. So for you to be hitting says to me, I missed something back there and I'll wear it. Do you know what I mean? Like I will take the blame and the responsibility for your escalation. And I'll go, whoa, okay. If we're hitting, I missed something 10 minutes ago that I should have helped you navigate, or a fight or something between you and your brother that I was not present for. That's on me. I'm sorry. I'm here now though. So let's talk about what's happened. And often the positive parenting, gentle parenting, whatever strategies will say things like, we don't hit in our family, Bobby. Hands are for hugging, not for hitting. It's just shaming. And it isn't, because it's, I know that that's not where our heart is at, but that's how they experience it. And then it often escalates it and makes them feel more like an alien and like we don't understand them. And so if we change the language instead to, okay, I'm not going to let you hit me because I see you're really angry or whatever. Like, I'm not going to let you, like, I'm going to put these sort of boundaries around. My personal preference though, is I don't need to comment at all on the hitting. It's not cool. You're not supposed to be doing it. I know me saying something ain't going to change it because right now you are off the planet. You are not thinking. So talking to you about it, your brain's not open for listening. You're in fight flight if you're hitting and throwing and stuff, right? So I'm not even going to talk. I'm going to focus more on, I think, my energy and how I'm being with you in this moment, which is, whoa, 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 whoa. I get it. And trying to get the other kid away, safe. And sometimes we do have to restrain and we have to hold the spicy kid back. But I think it's like we make it harder on ourselves when we add the language of like, you can't hit your sister, you can't hit your brother, hands aren't for hitting. It's like, they know we don't need to say that. It's like we focus more on, I'm going to help your body calm down. I'm going to help you calm down. I love you. I'm here. Because if you think about it, if they're escalated and they're in a fight flight response, I need to be real safety focused. Okay, what can I say right now that is safety and de-escalating and calming? What does that look like? It's maybe this face, the like compassionate face, like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm sorry I missed that, whatever happened a few minutes ago. I want to help you figure this out, okay? But be conscious about some kids do better if you match their intensity, and then some kids do better if you go into the compassionate face, and then some kids that pisses them off and they get angry. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, say whoa. Mom says whoa often gives me a second to breathe and think of what to say next. Yeah. Okay, but see there, right there. I love this. This one, little student, Kara, just said, when I say whoa, it often gives me a second to breathe and then think of what to say next. Stop thinking, stop thinking, stop thinking. If your whole script, okay, if your whole script in those moments is just whoa, you just say whoa for 10 minutes, she'll probably get pissed off and be like, why are you saying whoa so much, Mom? Don't think. Don't think. Why? When you think, you're going into your cortex. Do you see? You're going to the place that can't help you, going into your cortex of logic and reasoning. And she ain't there, dude. She's in the brawl, boxing, get your gloves on, lady. She's in that state. So if she's in an emotional state, I'm not saying you match her and go like, yeah, bring it. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But if she's in an emotional state, I think will serve you better is matching the intensity of, whoa, okay, I'm listening. I wasn't listening. I'm listening now. This is really serious. I'm hearing you. And communicating, you have my attention. Because to me, it's like she's escalating because she feels like you're not hearing her and you're not listening. And even though you're doing all the right things, because you're saying all the scripts, it actually is backfiring and not working, because it's like, again, you start reading from that script and she's like, what are you doing? Like, do you see? Which then makes me feel more misunderstood. You're not hearing me. Oh my God, you're reading from a script. You have a lot more intuition. You have a lot more, all of us, you're a lot smarter than you think. If a friend showed up at your door bawling their eyes out and hysterical, you wouldn't need to get your glasses on and consult your script. You wouldn't need to call me. If you had my number and could text me on speed dial and ask me, what should I say to my friend, Heidi? No, you wouldn't. Because you're a human being and you have feelings too. And you've had moments in your life where you've been angry or sad or felt frustrated or unheard or misunderstood, right? Go there. Go to what what this feels like. Different. And God forbid we ever say to a spicy, I know what this feels like, because they'll be like, no, you don't. Don't say that. But go in your mind, say, I know what it feels like to feel misunderstood. I know what it feels like to be in a lot of pain. I know what it feels like to feel dysregulated. I know what it feels like to feel out of control. I know what it feels like to be surrounded by people who don't understand me and don't get me. Meet her there with your knowing of what you know. And so what would you do if your friend showed up at your door bawling their eyes out? You would wrap your arms around them and go, hey, my gosh, what happened? And you would just be present, and you would just hold them while they sobbed, and you would rub their back, and you would go, oh, I'm here. And it's like, I think that's all she's looking for. She's looking for her mommy. She's not looking for a perfect student. She's looking for her mom. And you're the perfect person for the job. If you want to go woo-woo spiritual, her soul picked you for a reason. Your soul picked her for a reason. Stuff that you guys are here to teach each other and learn, It's not a mistake, the kids we were given. I think she just wants her authentic mom, And you're probably healing stuff within yourself that maybe you didn't even know needed to be healed, because I think that's most of us on this parenting journey of annoyance, that our kids are here to heal us and our wounded parts. Am I lovable if? Am I lovable when? Like Kara was saying with her car game, it makes me wonder what it was like for you when you were growing up. Were you lovable no matter what? And then I'd go, well, you said you were a perfectionist, kind of being a good student. And so then I answer my own question and go, probably not. It was probably communicated to you that you were lovable if, you were lovable when. So look at what the universe has gifted you. An opportunity to heal and grow and to heal that little part of yourself. Because part of this is her wanting to see, I am lovable no matter what. Oh, it's a lot of healing for you in this too, which is always what it ends up coming back to, is that there's our own work within this stuff, So yeah. And I just saw this second question that you said, how do we encourage her to make any kind of good choice for herself when everything is met with a brick wall? What's a good choice for you and what's a good choice for her are going to be different things. I would flip it to say, how do we encourage her to follow her heart, her voice, to listen to herself, to know what she needs and advocates for it? How do I learn how to trust her? How do I learn how to connect with her rather than trying to control the decisions that she makes? I know that's hard. I'm not saying that's easy, but like, you're such a good mom. Like, all of you guys, but you are such a good mom. Like, you are so thorough and you think about all the things because you're a good student. And this is also why that part of you that wears her glasses, I don't want her to leave your boardroom. I love her. She's great. She's super helpful. She's not bad. She just can't lead all the time. We don't want her to run all the parenting stuff, but like, is really lucky to have you as her mom because you try so hard. The little glasses sitting over there trying to learn all the things. That's beautiful. That's great. But it's like, maybe part of what it's teaching you is to not rely on the glasses, me, and the academic and the logic and the step by step. And maybe what is here to teach you is how to connect to your body, connect to your feelings, connect to advocating for yourself, not being a doormat, standing up for yourself, All right. Good chat, guys. Good call. Thank you for all of your great questions and discussion in the chat pad. That's always fun when everyone is chiming in and stuff. Yeah. Keep me posted, everyone, on what happens. And I'll see you guys next week. Okay. Bye.